Erica Monroe stood frozen as the concierge's dismissive words echoed in the marble lobby. "Members only," he had said, barely looking up from his computer screen. But when the massive digital display behind him suddenly flickered to life, showcasing the hotel's most valued corporate partners, everything changed. Her own face, larger than life, stared back at them both. The man's expression shifted from smugness to horror in seconds. "Ms. Monroe, wait!" he called out desperately. But she was already dialing a number that would shake the foundation of the entire hotel chain. "Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button to make my day, and let me know where you are watching from in the comments." The morning had started like any other for Erica Monroe, CEO of Monroe Tech Solutions, one of the fastest-growing cybersecurity firms in the country. She had arrived at the Grand Metropolitan Hotel in downtown Chicago 3 hours early for her 2 p.m. board meeting with Hartfield Industries, a potential client worth $47 million. Her navy Armani suit was impeccably tailored. Her patent leather briefcase contained presentations that had taken her team weeks to perfect, and her confidence was unshakable after 15 years of building her empire from a cramped apartment office to a company employing over 300 people. The Grand Metropolitan was known for its exclusivity, the kind of establishment where Fortune 500 executives conducted their most important business. Erica had specifically chosen this venue because Hartfield's CEO, Victoria Hartfield, preferred meeting in environments that reflected the caliber of partnerships she was considering. The hotel's executive lounge on the 42nd floor offered privacy, excellent Wi-Fi, and the kind of atmosphere that facilitated major deals. As Erica approached the mahogany reception desk of the executive lounge, she noticed the subtle elegance of the space. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of Lake Michigan. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light across leather furniture arranged in intimate conversation areas, and the soft hum of quiet business discussions created an atmosphere of productivity and success. This was exactly the environment she needed to close the biggest deal in her company's history. Behind a reception desk stood a man in his early 30s, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit with a gold name tag reading Marcus Whitfield, Concierge. His blonde hair was perfectly styled, his posture rigid with the kind of practiced formality that expensive hotels cultivated in their staff. When he looked up at Erica's approach, his expression was polite but distant, the sort of professional mask that revealed nothing of his thoughts. "Good morning," Erica said with a warm smile, setting her briefcase down beside the desk. "I'm here for the executive lounge. I have a meeting at 2, but I'd like to get set up early and review my materials." Marcus's eyes performed a quick assessment, taking in her appearance with the practiced efficiency of someone trained to categorize guests by their perceived value to the establishment. His gaze lingered for a moment longer than necessary, and something shifted almost imperceptibly in his demeanor. "I'm sorry, but the executive lounge is for members only," he said, his tone flat and final. Erica's eyebrows rose slightly. "I'm not a member, but I'm meeting with Victoria Hartfield at 2. She's the one who suggested we use this space. Perhaps you could call her to confirm?" "Ma'am, I don't need to call anyone. The policy is very clear. Members only. No exceptions." Marcus turned his attention back to his computer screen, fingers clicking across the keyboard with dismissive efficiency. "There's a lovely cafe on the ground floor that might better suit your needs." The subtle condescension in his voice was unmistakable, and Erica felt the familiar tightness in her chest that came with recognizing prejudice disguised as policy. She had encountered this countless times throughout her career. The assumption that she didn't belong in spaces designed for success. The immediate categorization based on nothing more than the color of her skin. But she had learned long ago that anger, while justified, was less effective than strategic thinking. "I understand you have policies," Erica replied, her voice remaining steady and professional. "However, I'm confident that Mrs. Hartfield has made arrangements. Could you please check your system for any notes about our meeting, Monroe Tech Solutions?" Marcus barely glanced up from his screen. "I don't see anything here. And even if there were, guests aren't permitted in the executive lounge without being accompanied by the member who sponsored them. That's hotel policy, and I don't have the authority to make it occur. Exceptions. When Mrs. Hartfield arrives, she'll be accompanying me then? When and if she arrives, and if she chooses to bring you up, Then we can discuss access. Until then, I'm afraid I can't help you. Ah. His fingers continued their rhythmic tapping on the keyboard, a subtle but clear indication that he considered the conversation over. Erica studied his face carefully, noting the way his jaw was set, the slight tension around his eyes that suggested he was not merely following protocol, but actively choosing to be obstructive. She had dealt with enough corporate politics to recognize when someone was using policy as a weapon rather than a guideline. The question was whether this was personal bias or simple incompetence. I see, she said quietly, reaching into her purse for her phone. In that case, I'll call Mrs. Hartfield directly and have her speak with you. You're welcome to do that from the lobby, Marcus replied without looking up. But I should mention that the executive lounge has very strict policies about noise levels, so any phone conversations would need to happen elsewhere anyway. The dismissal was so blatant that Erica actually felt a moment of disbelief. In her 15 years of building Monroe Tech Solutions, she had faced every form of professional discrimination imaginable, but rarely had it been delivered with such casual arrogance. She had learned to choose her battles carefully, to document everything, and to never let emotion cloud her judgment when dealing with prejudice. But this particular interaction was so egregious that it demanded a response. I understand, she said, her tone remaining perfectly controlled. I'll make my call from the lobby and sort this out with Mrs. Hartfield directly. As she turned to leave, her eyes caught something that made her pause. Behind Marcus, mounted on the wall like a piece of expensive art, was a massive digital display screen that rotated through promotional content about the hotel's services and partnerships. Currently, it was showing images of the hotel's award-winning restaurant, but as she watched, the screen transitioned to a new section, Valued Corporate Partners. The display cycled through logos and brief profiles of companies that maintained corporate accounts with the hotel chain. Tech giants, financial institutions, consulting firms, all the kinds of businesses that generated the revenue that kept establishments like the Grand Metropolitan profitable. Erica recognized most of the names, having competed with many of them for contracts over the years. Then the screen changed again, and Erica's breath caught in her throat. Her own face, professional and confident, filled the massive display. Beneath her photo, elegant text spelled out, Monroe Tech Solutions, Cybersecurity Excellence. CEO Erica Monroe, preferred corporate partner since 2019. Annual revenue. Contribution, $2. 3 million. End. The timing was so perfect, it almost seemed orchestrated by some cosmic sense of justice. Marcus, still focused on his computer screen, had no idea what was happening behind him. But Erica could see everything, the irony of the situation crystallizing with stunning clarity. She was literally watching herself being celebrated as one of the hotel's most valued clients, while simultaneously being denied access to services her company had already paid for. The display continued its rotation, showing Monroe Tech's partnership details, highlighting the company's rapid growth and substantial contributions to the hotel chain's corporate booking revenue. Erica's photo appeared again, this time alongside a quote she had given for a corporate testimonial. The Grand Metropolitan's executive facilities provide the perfect environment for high-stakes business negotiations. She almost laughed at the absurdity of it all. Excuse me, Marcus, she said, her voice carrying a new note of authority that made him look up from his screen. I think you might want to reconsider your position. Ma'am, as I explained, the policy is very clear, and I don't have the authority to. His voice trailed off as he noticed where she was pointing. Behind him, the massive screen was now displaying Monroe Tech's company profile in full detail, including photos of their headquarters, information about their cybersecurity innovations, and a prominent section highlighting their partnership with the Grand Metropolitan Hotel Group. Marcus turned slowly in his chair, his face draining of color as he took in the display. The screen showed Erica's face again, larger than life, with text describing her as one of the hotel's platinum-level corporate partners, and detailing the extensive services Monroe Tech provided to the hotel chain itself, including the very cybersecurity systems that protected the guest data he was accessing on his computer. For a long moment, the two of them stood in silence, watching the digital presentation celebrate a business relationship that Marcus had just spent 10 minutes pretending didn't exist. The screen cycled through testimonials from other corporate partners, but kept returning to Monroe Tech, almost as if the system itself was trying to make a point. "Ms. Monroe," Marcus said, his voice suddenly much higher than it had been moments before. I think there might have been some confusion. Let me check our system again." "No need," Erica replied, her phone already in her hand. "I think the situation is perfectly clear now." She scrolled through her contacts until she found the number she was looking for. David Richardson, Regional Vice President of Operations for the Grand Metropolitan Hotel Group. She had met David at a cybersecurity conference 2 years earlier, shortly after Monroe Tech had signed their partnership agreement. He had personally thanked her for choosing to work with their hotel chain, and had given her his direct number with instructions to call if she ever needed anything. Marcus watched in growing horror as Erica placed the call, the massive screen behind him continuing to cycle through images of her company's success and their partnership with his employer. "David? This is Erica Monroe from Monroe Tech Solutions." "Yes, I'm fine, thank you. I'm actually calling from your Chicago location, the Grand Metropolitan downtown. I'm having an interesting experience with your executive lounge service that I think you should know about." As she spoke, Erica kept her voice professional and calm, but Marcus could hear every word. The concierge's face had gone from pale to almost green, and his hands were trembling slightly as he frantically began typing on his computer, presumably trying to pull up information that he should have accessed from the Stina. Beginning. "That's right. I'm supposed to be meeting with Victoria Hartfield at 2 o'clock in the executive lounge, but your concierge has informed me that I don't qualify for access." "Yes." "Even though Monroe Tech has been a platinum partner since 2019, even though we spent over $2 million with your hotel chain in the past 4 years, even though your own digital display is currently showcasing our partnership behind him as we speak." David's voice on the other end of the line was sharp with concern, and even from a distance, Marcus could hear the tension in the regional vice president's tone as he asked for details about the situation. "His name is Marcus Whitfield," Erica continued, reading from the name tag of the man who was now visibly sweating. "He's been very thorough in explaining your policies to me. Very thorough indeed." Marcus finally found his voice, speaking in an urgent whisper as if trying not to be overheard on the phone call that was about him. "Ms. Monroe, please. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Let me get you set up right away. I'm sure we can work this out." Erica held up one finger, indicating he should wait while she finished her conversation with David. "No, David. I don't think this was a simple mistake. This was a deliberate choice to deny service to a valued client based on assumptions that have nothing to do with qualifications or membership status. Yes, I'm quite certain about that." The digital display behind Marcus chose that moment to transition to a video testimonial that Erica had recorded for the hotel chain's marketing materials. Her voice, confident and articulate, filled the space as she spoke about the importance of partnership and trust in business relationships. "Dated. I'm looking at a 40-foot screen that's currently playing a video of me praising your hotel chain's commitment to excellence and partnership. The irony is not lost on me." Marcus had begun pulling up screens on his computer with desperate efficiency, finally accessing the information he should have checked 20 minutes earlier. His face grew even paler as he saw the extensive details of Monroe Tech's corporate account, the VIP status codes, the standing instructions for executive lounge access, and the notes from previous stays that mark Erica as one of the hotel's most important clients. "Yes, David, I'll hold while you look into this," Erica said, then covered the phone's microphone with her hand and addressed Marcus directly. "Find what you were looking for?" "Ms. Monroe, I am so incredibly sorry. I don't know how I missed this in the system. Your account is right here. Platinum status, unlimited executive lounge access, VIP concierge services. I must have entered the wrong search parameters. This is completely my fault." "Must have," Erica agreed, her tone neutral but her eyes sharp. 47 minutes until my meeting with Mrs. Hartfield. I assume the executive lounge is available now?" "Yes, absolutely. Please, let me personally escort you up. And I'll have our hospitality manager bring you anything you need. Complimentary, of course. Coffee, lunch, whatever would make this right." "David? David?" Erica spoke back into the phone. Your Mr. Whitfield has just discovered my account information in your system. Apparently, there was a search parameter error. She listened to David's response, which was clearly a mixture of apologies and assurances that the situation would be addressed immediately and thoroughly. I appreciate that, David. Yes, I think a full review of training procedures would be appropriate. And yes, I'll be in touch about the cybersecurity contract renewal next month. We'll definitely need to discuss service standards as part of those negotiations. End quote. Marcus looked as if he might be physically ill. The cybersecurity contract renewal that Erica had just mentioned represented millions of dollars in business for the hotel chain, and his actions had just put that relationship at risk. Thank you, David. I'll let you get back to your day. And yes, I'll call you personally if there are any other issues during my stay. She ended the call and looked at Marcus, who was standing beside his desk like a student waiting to be dismissed by a principal after a serious disciplinary meeting. Shall we go up to the executive lounge now? She asked politely. Yes, ma'am. Right away. And again, I cannot apologize enough for this confusion. This is absolutely not the level of service we pride ourselves on at the Grand Metropolitan. As they walked toward the elevator bank, Marcus kept up a steady stream of nervous apologies and explanations, none of which addressed the real issue underlying the entire encounter. Erica listened politely but said very little, her mind already working through the broader implications of what had just happened. The executive lounge, when they finally reached it, was exactly as impressive as she had expected. The space was elegantly appointed with contemporary furniture in rich jewel tones. Original artwork adorned the walls, and the floor-to-ceiling windows offered spectacular views of the Chicago skyline and Lake Grass, Michigan beyond. Several other business people were scattered throughout the room, some working quietly on laptops, others engaged in low-voiced conversations over coffee and pastries. Marcus personally showed her to a corner table with excellent lighting and privacy, then hurried to bring her coffee, pastries, and every amenity the lounge offered. His desperation to make amends was almost painful to watch, but Erica remained gracious and professional throughout his efforts. Ms. Monroe, he said finally, hovering beside her table with obvious reluctance to leave her alone. Is there anything else I can do for you? Anything at all? I think I'm all set, thank you, she replied, opening her briefcase and beginning to arrange her materials for the upcoming meeting. I'll let you know if I need anything. Of course, and again, I am truly sorry about the confusion earlier. I hope you understand that this doesn't reflect our usual standards of service. Erica looked up at him, studying his face carefully. He was young, probably relatively new to his position, and clearly rattled by the morning's events. But there was something in his expression that suggested the apology was motivated more by fear of consequences than genuine understanding of what had gone wrong. Marcus, she said quietly, can I ask you something? Yes, ma'am, anything. When you first saw me this morning, before you checked any systems or asked any questions, what made you so certain that I didn't belong in Bong? The executive lounge? The question hung in the air between them, and Marcus's discomfort was obvious. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, his eyes darting away from her face as he struggled to formulate a response that wouldn't incriminate him further. I just was following standard procedures, he said finally. We have to verify membership for everyone. But you didn't verify anything, Erica pointed out gently. You never looked up my name, never checked your corporate partnership lists, never asked for identification or confirmation. You simply told me that I didn't qualify, and you were quite definitive about it. Marcus opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again, apparently realizing that any explanation he offered would only make the situation worse. I think, Erica continued, that you made an assumption based on what you saw when you looked at me, and I think that assumption had nothing to do with hotel policy or membership verification procedures. Ms. Monroe, I would never, I don't. It's all right, she said, cutting off his stammered protest. I'm not asking you to confess to anything or justify your actions. I'm asking you to think about what happened here today and consider whether you might approach similar situations differently in the future. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. I will definitely be more careful about checking our systems thoroughly before making any determinations about access. Erica nodded, but she could see in his face that he still didn't fully understand the real lesson of the morning's encounter. He was focused on the procedural failure, the fact that he hadn't checked the computer system properly. He wasn't grappling with the underlying bias that had made him certain she didn't belong there before he checked anything at all. "I appreciate your commitment to improving your procedures," she said diplomatically. "I'm sure Mr. Richardson will have some additional thoughts about training and service standards when he follows up with your management team." The mention of David Richardson and management follow-up made Marcus's face go pale again, and he nodded vigorously before finally excusing himself and leaving her to prepare for her meeting. Alone at last, Erica took her first sip of coffee and looked out at the stunning view of Lake Michigan. The morning's events had been frustrating, but not entirely surprising. She had built her career navigating environments where her presence was questioned, her qualifications doubted, and her right to be there challenged by people who made assumptions based on nothing more than their own limited worldview. What struck her most about the encounter with Marcus was not the initial prejudice, which she had encountered countless times before, but the complete obliviousness to the disconnect between his actions and the reality of her business relationship with his employer. He had denied service to someone who was literally featured on his company's promotional materials at that very moment. Someone whose business was worth millions of dollars to his employer. Someone whose cybersecurity expertise was actively protecting his hotel's systems and guest data. The irony would have been amusing if it weren't so indicative of larger systemic problems. How many other qualified professionals were being turned away from opportunities, partnerships, and spaces they had every right to access? How many Marcus Woodfields were making snap judgments that cost their employers valuable relationships and their industry's diverse perspectives? Her phone buzzed with a text message from Victoria Hartfield. "Running about 15 minutes late. Traffic is terrible. Hope you're able to get settled in the executive lounge comfortably. Looking forward to our meeting." Erica smiled and typed back, "No problem with the timing. I'm all set up and ready whenever you arrive. Looking forward to discussing the partnership." She didn't mention the morning's drama. There would be time to address systemic issues within the hotel industry later, but today's meeting was about securing a major contract that would allow her to hire 50 more employees and expand Monroe Tech's services into new markets. She had learned long ago to compartmentalize, to handle discrimination as a separate issue from business development, and to never let someone else's prejudice derail her professional objectives. As she reviewed her presentation materials, Erica reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. 15 years earlier, she had been a cybersecurity analyst working for a large consulting firm, watching other people get promoted ahead of her despite her superior technical skills and client relationships. The turning point had come when she realized that waiting for others to recognize her value was a losing strategy, that she would have to create her own opportunities if she wanted to achieve her professional goals. Starting Monroe Tech had been terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. She had used her savings to rent a small office space, hired 2 junior developers, and begun reaching out to small businesses that needed cybersecurity services but couldn't afford the big consulting firms. Her approach had been to provide enterprise-level security solutions at prices that growing companies could manage, building long-term relationships rather than maximizing short-term profits. The strategy had worked better than she had dared to hope. Within 3 years, Monroe Tech had grown to 25 employees and was handling cybersecurity for mid-size companies across the Midwest. Within 5 years, they were competing for major corporate contracts and had established partnerships with technology companies, financial institutions, and hospitality chains. The partnership with the Grand Metropolitan Hotel Group had been a major milestone, representing Monroe Tech's entry into the hospitality industry and opening doors to similar contracts with other hotel chains. The relationship had been mutually beneficial, with Monroe Tech providing comprehensive cybersecurity services, while the hotel group provided a prestigious client reference that helped attract other larger corporate clients. Now, with the Hartfield Industries contract within reach, Erica was poised to take Monroe Tech to the next level. Hartfield's business would not only provide substantial revenue, but also establish Monroe Tech as a major player in industrial cybersecurity, a specialized field with enormous growth potential. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a call from her assistant, Jennifer. Hi Jen, what's up? Just wanted to make sure everything's going smoothly for the Hartfield meeting. I know how important this one is. Everything's on track. Mrs. Hartfield is running a few minutes late, but I'm messin'. All set up and ready to go. Perfect. Also, I just got a call from David Richardson's office at Grand Metropolitan. Apparently there was some kind of service issue this morning that they want to follow up on. His assistant said he wanted to schedule a call with you to discuss service improvements and make sure you're completely satisfied with your experience. End quote. Erica almost smiled. David was clearly taking the morning's incident seriously and wanted to ensure that Monroe Tech's relationship with the hotel chain remained strong. Yes, there was a minor issue with executive lounge access when I arrived, but it got sorted out. I'll call David back after my meeting to discuss it. Should I be concerned about our hotel partnership? Not at all. In fact, I think this might lead to some positive changes in their training and service protocols. Sometimes these incidents can be opportunities for improvement. That's a very diplomatic way to put it. Knowing you, I'm guessing there's more to the story. There always is, but right now, I need to focus on Hartfield. We can debrief later. Good luck, boss. You've got this. You've got this. As Erica ended the call, she noticed Victoria Hartfield entering the executive lounge. Victoria was a tall, elegant woman in her mid-50s, with silver hair and the kind of commanding presence that came from decades of running a successful manufacturing company. She was dressed in a perfectly tailored burgundy suit and carried herself with the confidence of someone who was accustomed to being the most powerful person in any room. Victoria spotted Erica immediately and approached with a warm smile and an outstretched hand. "Erica! So wonderful to see you again. I hope you weren't waiting long." "Not at all," Erica replied, standing to greet her. "Perfect timing, actually. I had a chance to get settled and review our materials one more time." "Excellent. I have to say, I'm very excited about this conversation. What your team proposed in the preliminary meetings was exactly what we've been looking for." As they settled into the comfortable chairs, Erica felt the familiar surge of focus that came with important business negotiations. The morning's encounter with Marcus seemed like ancient history now, a minor obstacle that had been overcome on the way to something much more significant. "Before we dive into the technical details," Victoria said, "I want you to know that your company's reputation preceded you into this conversation. I've spoken with several of your current clients, and the feedback has been universally positive. The work you did for Patterson Manufacturing last year prevented what could have been a catastrophic data breach. We're proud of that partnership," Erica replied. "Patterson's industrial systems presented some unique challenges, but that's exactly the kind of complex problem-solving that Monroe Tech specializes in. Which is precisely why we're here. Hartfield Industries is undergoing a major digital transformation, integrating IoT sensors throughout our manufacturing processes, implementing predictive maintenance systems, and connecting our supply chain management to real-time data analytics. All of this creates enormous opportunities for efficiency and growth, but also significant cybersecurity vulnerabilities." Erica nodded, pulling out the detailed assessment her team had prepared. "We've analyzed your current infrastructure and identified several areas where enhanced security protocols will be critical. But more importantly, we've designed solutions that will integrate seamlessly with your digital transformation goals, rather than slowing them down." For the next 2 hours, they dove deep into technical specifications, implementation timelines, and cost structures. Victoria asked detailed questions about Monroe Tech's approach to industrial cybersecurity, their experience with similar manufacturing environments, and their strategies for staying ahead of emerging threats. Erica found herself in her element, discussing the intricacies of network security architecture, threat detection algorithms, and incident response protocols. This was the work she loved most, the complex problem-solving that had driven her to start her own company in the first place. "The thing that sets Monroe Tech apart," Erica explained as she walked through their proposed security framework, "is our understanding that cybersecurity isn't just about preventing attacks. It's about enabling businesses to pursue their growth strategies with confidence. Your digital transformation initiatives will generate enormous value for Hartfield Industries, and our job is to make sure that value is protected without constraining innovation." Victoria leaned back in her chair, a satisfied expression on her face. "That's exactly the philosophy we were hoping to hear." Too many cybersecurity firms approach these projects with a fortress mentality, trying to lock everything down so tightly that it becomes impossible to actually use the systems effectively. Security and functionality have to work together, Erica agreed. And that requires cybersecurity partners who understand your business objectives, not just the technical requirements. As their meeting continued, Erica couldn't help but notice the contrast between this conversation and her earlier encounter with Marcus. Here was Victoria Hartfield, one of the most successful manufacturing executives in the country, treating Erica as an equal partner in a complex business negotiation. The discussion was based entirely on expertise, track record, and strategic vision, the kinds of criteria that actually mattered for business success. Meanwhile, 3 floors below, Marcus had initially dismissed her based on nothing more than his own assumptions about who belonged in the executive lounge of an upscale hotel. The irony was that both interactions were happening in the same building on the same day, illustrating the complex reality of professional life for someone like Erica. She could simultaneously be celebrated as a valued corporate partner and treated as an unwelcome intruder, depending on whom she encountered and what assumptions they brought to their interactions. "I think we've covered all the technical details," Victoria said finally, checking her watch. "I have to say, Erica, this proposal addresses every concern my team raised and several potential issues we hadn't even considered yet. The implementation timeline is aggressive but realistic, and the cost structure provides excellent value for the scope of services you're offering. We're committed to making this partnership a success," Erica replied. Hartfield Industries represents exactly the kind of forward-thinking manufacturing company that Monroe Tech was designed to serve. "Well then," Victoria said with a smile, "I think we're ready to move forward. I'll need to present this to our board for final approval, but I don't anticipate any issues. You should expect to receive our signed contract by the end of next week." Erica felt a surge of satisfaction and relief. $47 million in new business, the largest contract in Monroe Tech's history, and the foundation for expanding into industrial cybersecurity markets across the country. "That's wonderful news," she said, shaking Victoria's hand firmly. "We're excited to begin this partnership and help Hartfield Industries achieve its digital transformation goals securely and efficiently." As Victoria gathered her materials and prepared to leave, she paused and looked at Erica thoughtfully. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "How do you handle it?" "Handle what?" "Being one of the few African-American women running a major cybersecurity firm. I know the tech industry hasn't always been welcoming to people who don't fit the traditional profile. I imagine you face challenges that most of your competitors never have to deal with." Erica considered the question carefully. It was rare for clients to acknowledge the additional obstacles she navigated, and she appreciated Victoria's directness. "It's complicated," she said finally. "On one hand, I'd had to work twice as hard to prove myself in every situation, and I've faced prejudice that has nothing to do with my qualifications or capabilities. On the other hand, those experiences have made me a better business leader. I've learned to be more strategic, more resilient, and more focused on results than many of my competitors." That's a very diplomatic answer. But it's also an honest one. I could spend all my time being angry about the unfairness of it all, or I can channel that energy into building the best cybersecurity firm in the country. I've chosen the latter approach. Victoria nodded approvingly. That's exactly the kind of leadership philosophy we want in our business partners. Results-focused, resilient, strategic. The tech industry needs more leaders like you. After Victoria left, Erica remained in the executive lounge for another hour, making calls to her team to share the good news about the Hartfield contract and planning the next steps for implementation. The space that Marcus had tried to deny her access to had become the setting for the most important business success in her company's history. As she packed up her materials and prepared to leave, her phone rang with a call from David Richardson. "Erica, I cannot begin to apologize adequately for what happened this morning. I've just finished reviewing the entire incident with our hotel management team, and I want you to know that we're taking this very seriously." "I appreciate that, David. And I hope you understand that my concern isn't just about this one incident, but about the broader patterns it represents." "Absolutely. Which is why I want to discuss some systemic changes we're implementing. First, we're revising our training protocols for all guest services staff to ensure that corporate partnership verification is handled consistently and professionally. Second, we're updating our computer systems to automatically flag VIP and corporate partner accounts so that this kind of oversight can't happen again. That sounds like a good start. But I also want to address the underlying issues that led to this situation. We're bringing in diversity and inclusion consultants to review our hiring practices, training programs, and service protocols. And we're implementing regular bias training for all customer-facing staff. Erica was impressed by the comprehensiveness of David's response. Many companies would have simply apologized and hoped the issue would go away, but the Grand Metropolitan seemed committed to actual change. "I'm glad to hear that you're taking such a thorough approach," she said. "And I want you to know that this incident doesn't change Monroe Tech's commitment to our partnership with your hotel chain. In fact, if you're serious about these improvements, it might actually strengthen our relationship. That means everything to us, Erica. Your partnership has been incredibly valuable, and we want to make sure that every aspect of your experience with our hotels reflects the respect and professionalism you deserve." "Speaking of our partnership," Erica said, "our contract comes up for renewal in 3 months. I'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss expanding our services to include additional cybersecurity training for your staff, particularly around guest data protection and privacy protocols." "That sounds excellent. Let me have my assistant coordinate with yours to set up a meeting. And Erica, thank you for handling this morning's situation with such professionalism. A lot of people would have walked away from the partnership entirely. David, I've been building my business for 15 years. If I walked away from every partnership where someone initially underestimated me, I wouldn't have any clients left." After ending the call, Erica took one last look around the executive lounge. The space was still elegant and impressive, still filled with the quiet energy of important business being conducted, but now it also represented something else. The importance of persistence, the value of strategic thinking over emotional reactions, and the possibility that even negative experiences could lead to positive changes. As she waited for the elevator, she noticed Marcus at the reception desk, helping another guest with executive lounge access. This time, his customer service was thorough and professional, checking the computer system carefully and asking appropriate questions about corporate partnerships and membership status. Whether his improved performance was motivated by genuine learning or simple fear of consequences, Erica couldn't say, but the result was the same: better service for all guests, regardless of their appearance or background. The elevator arrived, and as Erica stepped inside, she reflected on the day's events. She had secured the largest contract in Monroe Tech's history, strengthened her partnership with a major hotel chain, and potentially contributed to systemic improvements in customer service training and diversity awareness. Most importantly, she had demonstrated once again that success was the best response to prejudice, that excellence and persistence could overcome even the most frustrating obstacles, and that every challenge was an opportunity to prove that she belonged exactly where she was. As the elevator descended toward the lobby, Erica was already thinking about the next steps for Monroe Tech's expansion into industrial cybersecurity, the hiring plan for 50 new employees, and the strategic partnerships that would be possible with the Hartfield contract as a foundation. The morning's encounter with Marcus had been a reminder of the obstacles she still faced, but the afternoon's success with Victoria Hartfield was proof of how far she had come. And tomorrow, she would continue building the cybersecurity firm she had envisioned 15 years ago. One client, one contract, and one partnership at a time. The elevator reached the lobby, and Erica walked through the marble-floored entrance with her head held high, her briefcase containing the signed preliminary agreement that would transform her company's future. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long shadows across the polished stone, and she could hear the familiar sounds of a busy hotel, guests checking in and out, phones ringing at the concierge desk, the gentle hum of successful commerce. But her day was far from over. As she reached the hotel's main entrance, her phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "Local news wants an interview about the Hartfield contract. Apparently word is getting out about Monroe Tech's expansion. Should I set something up?" Erica paused on the sidewalk, considering the request. Media attention could be valuable for Monroe Tech's growth, helping to establish their reputation in the industrial cybersecurity market and potentially attracting other major clients. But she also knew that as one of the few black women CEOs in the cybersecurity industry, any interview would inevitably focus as much on her personal story as on her company's business success. "Set it up for next week," she texted back. "But make sure they understand that the focus should be on Monroe Tech's cybersecurity innovations and our expansion into industrial markets. I want to talk about our technology and business strategy, not just diversity angles." "Got it, boss." Also, Robert needs to discuss the new hiring timeline, and Sarah has questions about the Hartfield implementation team structure. Erica smiled as she hailed a taxi to take her back to Monroe Tech's headquarters. This was exactly the kind of problem she wanted to have. The challenge of managing rapid growth and expansion, rather than fighting for recognition and opportunities. The taxi ride through downtown Chicago gave her time to process the morning's events more fully. The contrast, between Marcus's initial dismissal and Victoria Hartfield's enthusiastic partnership illustrated something important about the current state of American business. While prejudice and bias still existed at many levels, there was also a growing recognition among successful leaders that talent and expertise came in many forms, and that companies who embraced diversity would have competitive advantages over those who didn't. Victoria Hartfield had chosen Monroe Tech not despite Erica's background, but because of the unique perspective and innovative approaches that her experiences had generated. The cybersecurity solutions that Monroe Tech provided were shaped by Erica's understanding of what it meant to be underestimated, to have to prove yourself repeatedly, and to develop creative strategies for overcoming obstacles. When the taxi pulled up in front of Monroe Tech's headquarters, Erica felt the familiar surge of pride that came with seeing the sleek glass building that housed her company. The lobby displayed awards and recognition from cybersecurity industry organizations, photos from major client implementations, and testimonials from satisfied customers. But what she valued most were the candid shots of Monroe Tech's employees, a diverse group of cybersecurity experts, software developers, project managers, and support staff who had chosen to build their careers with her company. Jennifer met her at the elevator with a tablet full of updates and a cup of coffee prepared exactly the way Erica preferred it. "The Hartfield news is already generating interest," Jennifer reported as they rode up to the executive floor. 3 other manufacturing companies have called asking about industrial cybersecurity consultations, and TechCrunch wants to do a feature story about Monroe Tech's growth trajectory. "That's excellent," Erica replied, reviewing the messages on Jennifer's tablet. "But let's make sure we can deliver on the current commitments before we take on too much new business. The worst thing we could do is overpromise and underdeliver during this expansion phase." Robert's already working on scaling plans. He thinks we can handle the additional business if we hire strategically and maybe partner with some specialized contractors for certain types of implementations. As they entered Erica's office, she could see through the glass walls into the main workspace where Monroe Tech's employees were busy with their various projects. Software developers worked on threat detection algorithms. Cybersecurity analysts reviewed network vulnerability assessments, and project managers coordinated implementations for clients across the country. This was what she had built from that cramped apartment office 15 years ago. A company that employed over 300 skilled professionals and provided cybersecurity services that protected millions of people's data and privacy. The morning's encounter with Marcus seemed insignificant compared to the magnitude of what she had accomplished and what lay ahead. Her phone rang with a call from an unknown number, but the caller ID showed it was from the Grand Metropolitan Hotel Group's corporate headquarters. "Ms. Monroe? This is Patricia Williams, Executive Vice President of Guest Services for Grand Metropolitan Hotel Group. I'm calling to personally apologize for the service failure you experienced this morning at our Chicago location." "Ms. Williams, I appreciate the call, but David Richardson and I have already discussed the situation, and I'm confident that your team is taking appropriate action." "We are indeed, but I wanted to speak with you directly because this incident highlights some systemic issues that we need to address across our entire hotel chain. Would you be willing to consult with us on developing better training programs and service protocols?" Erica was intrigued by the request. Consulting on customer service and bias training wasn't Monroe Tech's primary business, but it could be an interesting expansion of their corporate training services. That's an interesting proposition. What did you have in mind? We're looking at comprehensive diversity and inclusion training for all guest services staff, but we also want to address the technology side of the equation. Better systems for identifying VIP and corporate clients, automated alerts for special service requirements, that kind of thing. It seems like Monroe Tech's expertise in both cybersecurity and corporate training could be very valuable for this project. I'd be happy to discuss it. Have your team put together a proposal outlining your specific objectives and timeline, and we can set up a meeting to explore the possibilities. Excellent. And Ms. Monroe? I want you to know that this incident has been a wake-up call for our organization. We pride ourselves on exceptional service, and what happened this morning fell far short of our standards. But I'm hoping we can turn it into an opportunity for meaningful improvement. After ending the call, Erica realized that the morning's frustrating encounter might actually generate new business opportunities for Monroe Tech. Their cybersecurity expertise, combined with their experience navigating bias and discrimination, could be valuable for organizations that wanted to improve their service delivery and create more inclusive environments. Jennifer knocked on her office door, followed by Robert Chin, Monroe Tech's Chief Operating Officer, and Sarah Williams, their Director of Business Development. Ready for the expansion planning meeting? Robert asked, carrying a laptop and several folders filled with hiring projections and implementation timelines. Absolutely, Erica replied, settling into the conference table in her office. Let's talk about how we're going to handle the biggest growth opportunity in Monroe Tech's history. For the next 3 hours, they dove into the details of scaling the company to handle the Hartfield Industries contract and the additional business that was already being generated by news of their expansion. They discussed hiring plans, office space requirements, equipment purchases, and partnership opportunities with specialized contractors. The key, Erica emphasized as they wrapped up the meeting, is to maintain the quality and innovation that got us to this point. We can grow fast, but we can't sacrifice the standards that our clients expect from Monroe Tech. Agreed, Sarah said, making notes on her laptop. I think the Hartfield contract actually helps us there because it establishes us as a major player in industrial cybersecurity. Other manufacturing companies will want to work with us precisely because we landed such a high-profile client. And the media attention doesn't hurt either, Robert added. The TechCrunch feature story could generate significant interest from investors if we decide we want to pursue additional funding for expansion. Erica considered the possibility of bringing in outside investment. Monroe Tech had been entirely self-funded since its inception, which had given her complete control over the company's direction and values. But with the growth opportunities now available, strategic investment might allow them to expand more quickly and compete for even larger contracts. Let's explore our options, she said finally. But any investment partnership would have to align with Monroe Tech's values and long-term objectives. I'm not interested in sacrificing our company culture for rapid growth. As Robert and Sarah left to begin implementing their expansion plans, Erica remained at her conference table, looking out at the Chicago skyline and reflecting on the remarkable day she had experienced. The morning's discrimination and the afternoon's business triumph seemed like they had happened to different people. But they were both part of the complex reality of building a successful company as a Black woman in the technology industry. Her phone buzzed with a text from Victoria Hartfield. Erica, I've been thinking about our conversation this afternoon. Would you be interested in speaking at the Manufacturing Leadership Conference next month? I think your perspective on cybersecurity and digital transformation would be valuable for the audience, and it would be great exposure for Monroe Tech. The invitation was both an honor and an opportunity. The Manufacturing Leadership Conference was one of the most prestigious events in the industry. Attended by executives from major manufacturing companies across the country, a keynote presentation there could establish Erica as a thought leader in industrial cybersecurity and generate substantial new business for Monroe Tech. I'd be delighted to speak at the conference, she texted back. Thank you for thinking of me. Should I coordinate details with your team? I'll have my assistant send you the conference information. They're looking for a presentation on cybersecurity best practices for digital transformation initiatives, which is exactly your area of expertise. As Erica prepared to leave the office for the day, she realized that the morning's encounter with Marcus had ultimately been a small obstacle on the path to much larger opportunities. The frustration and indignity of being dismissed and underestimated had lasted less than an hour, while the business success and professional recognition that followed would have lasting impact on Monroe Tech's growth and her own career trajectory. But she also recognized that not everyone who faced similar discrimination would have the resources, support systems, and opportunities that had allowed her to turn the experience into a catalyst for positive change. Marcus's assumptions and biases represented systemic problems that affected countless professionals who didn't, quote, have the leverage of a $47 million contract to ensure they were taken seriously. The consulting opportunity with the Grand Metropolitan Hotel Group might allow Monroe Tech to address some of those systemic issues. More broadly, helping to create environments where people were judged by their qualifications and contributions, rather than by superficial characteristics or unconscious biases. As she gathered her belongings and prepared to head home, Erica's phone rang with a call from her mother, Dr. Angela Monroe, a retired professor of business administration, who had been one of Erica's most important mentors and supporters throughout her career. Congratulations, sweetheart. Jennifer called to tell me about the Hartfield contract. I'm so proud of what you've accomplished. Thanks, Mom. It's been quite a day. The contract is even bigger than we originally hoped, and it's going to allow us to expand into new markets and hire a lot more people. That's wonderful news. Your father would be so proud to see what you've built. Erica's father, James Monroe, had died 5 years earlier. But his influence on her business philosophy and leadership approach continued to shape Monroe Tech's culture. He had been an engineer who faced his own share of discrimination and obstacles. But who had taught Erica that excellence and persistence could overcome even the most challenging circumstances? I had an interesting encounter this morning that reminded me of some of Dad's stories about navigating workplace bias, Erica said, giving her mother a brief summary of the executive lounge incident. I'm sorry you had to deal with that, but I'm proud of how you handled it. You turned a negative experience into an opportunity for positive change, both for your own business and potentially for that hotel chain's training practices. Dad always said that success was the best response to prejudice. I think you would have appreciated the irony of my face being featured on their corporate partnership display while their concierge was trying to kick me out. Dr. Monroe laughed. He definitely would have found that amusing. But he also would have been impressed by your professionalism and strategic thinking. You handled that situation exactly the way he would have advised. As they continued talking about the day's events and Monroe Tech's expansion plans, Erica realized how much her parents' support and guidance had contributed to her ability to navigate challenges and build a successful company. Their encouragement had given her the confidence to start Monroe Tech. Their wisdom had helped her make difficult business decisions, and their example had shown her that professional success and personal integrity could coexist. After ending the call with her mother, Erica took one last look around her office before heading home. The walls displayed framed photos from major client implementations, awards from cybersecurity industry organizations, and newspaper articles about Monroe Tech's growth and success. But her favorite item was a small framed quote from her father: "Excellence is not a skill, it's an attitude." That attitude had carried her through 15 years of building Monroe Tech from a startup to a major cybersecurity firm. Through countless encounters with bias and discrimination, and through the challenges of leading a diverse team in a competitive industry. And tomorrow, it would guide her as she began the next phase of the company's growth, the expansion into industrial cybersecurity that would establish Monroe Tech as a major player in the national market. The elevator ride down to the lobby gave her a few minutes to think about the remarkable journey that had brought her to this point. From that cramped apartment office, where she had started Monroe Tech with 2 employees and a handful of small business clients, to today's signed agreement with one of the country's largest manufacturing companies, every step had required persistence, innovation, and the kind of strategic thinking that turned obstacles into opportunities. As she walked through the lobby of her own building, Erica couldn't help but contrast the respect and recognition she received from her employees, clients, and industry peers with the dismissive treatment she had experienced from Marcus that morning. The difference wasn't in her qualifications, expertise, or accomplishments, all of which had remained constant throughout the day. The difference was in the assumptions and biases that different people brought to their interactions with her. That realization reinforced her commitment to using Monroe Tech's success and influence to create opportunities for other underrepresented professionals in the technology industry. The 50 new employees they would be hiring as part of the Hartfield expansion would include talented people from diverse backgrounds who might not otherwise have had opportunities to work on cutting-edge cybersecurity projects. Her phone buzzed with one final message of the day, this one from David Richardson. "Erica, I wanted to let you know that Marcus Whitfield has requested additional diversity and bias training, and he's volunteered to participate in our customer service improvement initiatives. I think this morning's incident was a genuine learning experience for him." End quote. Erica smiled as she read the message. Perhaps Marcus had learned something valuable from their encounter, and perhaps the Grand Metropolitan's commitment to improving their training and service protocols would benefit other guests who might otherwise face similar discrimination. As she walked to her car in the parking garage, Erica reflected on the complex nature of progress in addressing workplace bias and discrimination. Change happened slowly and unevenly, often requiring persistent effort and strategic thinking rather than dramatic confrontations or emotional responses. But change did happen, and sometimes it came from the most unexpected places. A morning's frustration at a hotel concierge desk had led to new business opportunities, improved training protocols, and potentially better service for countless future guests. The Hartfield Industries contract would allow Monroe Tech to hire 50 new employees, many of whom would be young professionals getting their first opportunities to work on major cybersecurity projects. These individual successes and improvements might seem small compared to the magnitude of systemic bias and discrimination, but Erica had learned that meaningful change often happened one person, one company, and by hand, one opportunity at a time. As she drove home through the Chicago traffic, her phone connected automatically to her car's audio system, and she listened to messages from employees congratulating her on the Hartfield contract, from industry colleagues expressing interest in Monroe Tech's expansion plans, and from potential clients who had heard about the company's growth and wanted to discuss cybersecurity consulting services. The day that had started with Marcus Whitfield's dismissive, members-only declaration was ending with Monroe Tech positioned for unprecedented growth, new partnerships, and expanded opportunities to make a positive impact in the cybersecurity industry. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities, but tonight, Erica Monroe could reflect on a day when excellence, persistence, and strategic thinking had once again proven that success was indeed the best response to prejudice, and that every obstacle could become a stepping stone to greater achievements. The last message on her voicemail was from Victoria Hartfield. "Erica, I forgot to mention this during our meeting, but I'm planning to recommend Monroe Tech to several other manufacturing executives at next week's Industry Council meeting. Your presentation today was BS. Impressive, but more importantly, your company's approach to cybersecurity aligns perfectly with what we need for the next phase of industrial digital transformation. I think you're going to be very busy over the next few months." As Erica pulled into her driveway, she realized that the morning's encounter with bias and discrimination had become the catalyst for the most successful day in Monroe Tech's 15-year history. The lesson, she thought, was not that prejudice should be tolerated or ignored, but that it should never be allowed to define the limits of what was possible. She had built Monroe Tech by focusing on excellence rather than obstacles, by creating opportunities rather than waiting for recognition, and by demonstrating through consistent success that talent, innovation, and leadership came in many forms. The Hartfield Industries contract was validation of that approach, but more importantly, it was the foundation for the next chapter of growth and impact. As she walked toward her front door, Erica's phone buzzed one last time with a text from Jennifer. "Boss, I just got a call from Forbes. They want to interview you for their Women Leaders in Tech feature next month. Should I set it up?" Erica smiled and typed back, Absolutely. But make sure they understand that I want to talk about Monroe Tech's cybersecurity innovations and our expansion strategy. The focus should be on our technology and business success, with personal story as context, not the other way around. Got it. And Erica, congratulations on an amazing day. You've earned every bit of this success. As she unlocked her front door and stepped into her home, Erica Monroe knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities. But tonight, she could take satisfaction in knowing that Monroe Tech was positioned for unprecedented growth, and that the morning's discrimination had ultimately become the catalyst for the company's greatest triumph. The day had begun with the concierge's dismissive assumptions and ended with a $47 million contract, new partnership opportunities, and recognition as a leader in industrial cybersecurity. It was, she reflected, a perfect example of why she had learned long ago never to let anyone else's limitations define her own possibilities. In the quiet of her home, surrounded by the photos and mementos of 15 years of building Monroe Tech, Erica Monroe began planning for tomorrow's challenges and the remarkable opportunities that lay ahead for her company, her employees, and the cybersecurity industry as a whole.